All right. I believe this means we are live. We made it. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, welcome to another episode of the SGGQA podcast, the Monday morning tech chat show. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, aka some just totally forgot his opening podcast patter guy. So the SGG is not the important part. The QA is the important part. As we kick off our week, we get our tech week started right. And I like to make that just a little bit more of a back and forth in exchange. We can have a conversation about some news, about some reviews, and especially as we're getting into the end of the year, one of the things I'd really like to do is kind of get some folks' thoughts in this live chat on some ways to shake up end of the year content. You know, I genuinely don't believe there's a best phone of the year, but that doesn't mean I don't want to kind of reflect on all of the trends that we've had in mobile technology and apps and services and games and phones and tablets. I kind of want to start planning a bit of that, you know, because once we get to like Thanksgiving, it's just, man, we're just racing to the end of the year. So if I'm already seeing a crazy collection of some maybe needs to drink more coffee for his show guy. Thanks, Aditya. That is probably accurate. Oh, and Snorkel. Hey, welcome back. Nice to be back after a few weeks away. Hopefully you had some downtime while you were away and you weren't, you know, tapping into all of this tech drama that we've been going through. Oh man, good morning indeed. I love the collection of faces that I'm already seeing in this. I think this is going to be a really fun conversation. Here, let me get this out of the way. Awesome, possum. Let's knock down Onward Mobility's door for the BlackBerry announcement we are all still waiting for. I hate that I had that feeling and that feeling turned out to be correct, that Onward was going to be kind of a vaporware licensing uh, exercise. So, yes, let's jump into some conversation and some chatter. I'm going to drink some more coffee, like Aditya recommended I would. At some point, we'll have to kind of plan out our how to convince everyone that Die Hard is the bestest Christmas movie. I feel like that's got to happen in a couple weeks. Oh, Sveticus, you're not late. You're right on time. We just got started. I love it. Oh, and Sam, what's up? Hey, we got Sammy in chat too. Kenedita and Simon, good to see you, gents. Am well, but working, so I'll be in and out today. So I'm glad you could. I'm glad you could stop by. Simon says, "Hypno, why not have a Best of the Year Sam Apple Award?" You know, I mean, when we get to that part, and I kind of want to save that more for the gadget blog. I want to talk about like criteria, you know, best productivity features, best, you know, when I say camera, I don't want to do bestest camera because there isn't one. There genuinely is not. And I want to find some ways to like break down gadgets in a way that actually does highlight what they did well, not just I'm most familiar with this phone and it takes the goodest pictures. So, um, guys, we don't need to convince anyone on Die Hard 1. It's just a fact that it's the best Christmas movie. Complete. Citation given. So there you go, folks. Um, I mean, I have very strong feelings about Die Hard. And I want to throw a shout out and a thank you. Gary the Fireman subbed with Prime and gifted a tier 1 sub to Snorkel. Thank you so much. That is amazing. And I greatly appreciate the support and everything on this channel. I hope everyone here had a lovely weekend. Like Snorkel, maybe you got a little downtime, you got a little rest, a little R&R. The holidays can be very stressful, and I hope you're all taking the time to take care of yourselves because that energy for taking care of others can be very quickly depleted and very quickly exhausted. So, why don't we knock out some housekeeping, get back into the traditional flow of my show because I've been a little off my game these last couple weeks, and then we'll knock out some news, get into. Sorry, I just got this one here. Hold on. Stop. The chat's going too fast. No best camera, only because he didn't review the iPhone, right? Oh, Gorm Lord, you got me again. I love it. I'm Boing Bite, also with a tier 1 sub. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right. Let's kick this in. Let me get this out of the way here. All right. So starting off with some housekeeping. Last week was a very busy week, but again, it's in that ebb and flow of everything that came from Techtober. I'm now catching up on and trying to, um, and I'm trying to sort of highlight some of the additional, sort of the back end review process of all of these gadgets. Like, I need to do a little more tweaking and playing. I've had my SIM card in and out of Pixel 6 Pro, Vivo X70. I took the Vivo out last night again just to do a long exposure test with a new ND filter that I'm using. And I still have to shoot a bunch for the Duo 2. So there's been a lot. It's just like trying to piecemeal and compartmentalize. And then also, if I want to go out and shoot camera samples, like I'm almost forced to carry like 6 different gadgets with me to try and accomplish that. And it's heavy stuff. Last week I knocked out a couple things, and then I got one big project off my plate. So I'm hoping that this week I can catch up with a few more accessories, get a few editorials out, and then I keep saying this and I keep failing. I really need to get back to writing some more of my commentary and not turning everything into a video. So everything that we're going to be talking about, all of the housekeeping, all of the news, all of the links, all the articles, everything will be available on SomeGadgetGuy.com and especially on this week's show notes. So kicking over into screen share, I'm just glad I finally got a chance to circle back and put out a video on the OnePlus Buds Pro. OnePlus Buds Pro review, your best buds, question mark? So I spent some time playing with these. The microphones are fantastic. The sound quality is good. And just to kind of spoil a part of my conclusion for that video, because of the differences in codecs and processing, and we're waiting on an update for the OnePlus 9s, I think OnePlus has inadvertently made phenomenal sounding earbuds for Xiaomi phones. So you can see why I feel that way in the full review. Last week was also a pretty big week internationally because Xiaomi had some stuff to show off. We got the Poco M4 Pro 5G, which is just a banger budget option. Again, whenever I get to play with these phones internationally, it's kind of intense because we want to feel like there's competition here in North America, but then you get to see these kinds of options showing up all over the world, and it really does kind of throw into contrast just how different our various phone markets are. Oh, and I completely missed. There's apparently a hype train going on Twitch right now. DVZN Media just subscribed with Prime, and if you're if you've got any bits to use, you can also use some bits, and we can try and knock out this hype train and get us up to the next level. I'm so bad at doing the Twitch. I didn't even notice that we were a minute into hype train. So Poco M4 Pro, a phone that internationally is going to retail for around 250 bucks. It's just a stupid amount of phone for $250. And after playing with Infinix and a number of other sort of low-cost options, just what we can do to put together not just like a passable smartphone experience so that, you know, someone who doesn't have a lot of money can still check their email. Like, this is a full-featured phone that does battle well against year-old mid-rangers. I mean, it's pretty crazy to see how you know, how we can kind of shake up a market at any price tier. And that's definitely where I think Xiaomi is just absolutely crushing right now. We've been seeing some rumors and stuff for like next year's Galaxies. The S21 FE is kind of on hold. We'll probably see it in January after the Pixel 6 hype has died down a bit. But, you know, I think there's kind of a crisis of premium priced devices happening in Android land. And increasingly, we're seeing really nice tech trickle down to low and lower price tiers. So TK is telling me I need to stretch. Yeah. So yeah, DVZN Media is asking what Poco phone. I recently, where did it go? So I've got the M4. They also sent an F3 for me to kind of play around with a bit. You know, this is a phone that came out around 6 months ago, somewhere around there. And again, just another monster buy if we're looking at sort of streamlining a phone for the highest tier of performance. Not the nicest phone experience, but one of the most powerful at its price point. Oh, and look at this. We completed our level 1 hype train. So there's a choo choo dolphin that we can now use as an emote. So that's pretty cool. Nice. TK Bay saying the F3 that I've got is the new color option. So they sent me an M4 in gray. So I'm feeling pretty good that I got the F3 in kind of like this white silver. I do have some criticisms to share though, because you know we whenever we're in gadget land and we overly sort of penalize a phone, you're like, oh, the build quality, does it even feel nice in the hand? And you've heard me make fun of things like that before. There are some material choices though that if you're gonna walk away from glass on the back of your phone, I want to give you the thumbs up. I think that's better for durability and repairability. But the finish on those products can sometimes make an inexpensive device feel cheap. So we've got some things to talk about. I feel like there are still, I know there's like a ride or die Xiaomi community where there's no point in shopping anything other than a Poco because you want the mostest powerful processor and the leastest expensive gadget. But there are reasons why we look at a variety of products at different price tiers. So, oh, from DVZN Media. Yeah, this is also one of the, I just juiced my mouse and now I can't control anything. Hold on, I've got to click, because I'm old and I can't use my mouse on as fast a setting. I had one of the Poco phones. It wouldn't work with my carrier, but I loved it for the short time I had it. I actually kind of got a bit more interested and kind of back into the Xiaomi swing as importing their options. Because of the folks like Easy Computer Solutions, Barry Johnson, Gadget Goddess, Tech King Mike, LaShawn, Holler at Your Boy. I've been watching their live streams pretty religiously over the last year or so, and it was just real refreshing to see this group of like North American reviewers just like, yeah, I had to import this phone and then I wanted to do this and here's my Mi 11 and watch how it kicks butt over here, and you're like, oh, that's actually a really interesting kind of community conversation about the pros and cons and competition because we're not getting these devices here in the United States. So, and the Hawks, yeah, love Xiaomi phones. I mean, they've been killing it right now. And I feel as we watch Samsung sales dwindle at the high end and Xiaomi start to eclipse most other brands internationally, where having zero presence in the United States, they're still, I believe, the top option in sales right now. I think they've taken the #1 spot. That's hilarious, first of all, but it's also just kind of, insightful. What is it that consumers are really shopping for? And around the world, I think there's a lot of evidence to point to Xiaomi doing this right. Oh yeah, I mean we can talk about M4 also when we get to the gadget block. There's a lot that goes on with the Xiaomi, talking about debloating, and then also Huawei getting kind of knocked out of the market because of political pressures. It's pretty intense stuff. So oh yeah, we still got to finish housekeeping here real quick. TK and I, so those were the two big stories on SomeGadgetGuy, the OnePlus earbuds and the Poco M4 Pro 5G. TK and I also had a stream on Thursday. This one, well, no, sorry. We had a special Friday morning stream where we usually stream on Thursday evenings, and it was because we took a field trip out. We had a night at the movies. We got to get all gussied up and dressed up for a fancy movie premiere, being all Hollywood, because we're totes Hollywood. and we got to see we were on the red carpet for the Netflix original, The Power of the Dog with Benedict Cumberbatch and Kirsten Dunst, who were in attendance. Catherine Hahn led the Q&A after the showing. It was a phenomenal evening, and I want to thank the folks at TCL for extending the invitation to go to the TCL Chinese Theater and catch this premiere. It was a lovely evening. We got to talk about that a little bit more on Best of Our Week, because that was definitely, for both of us, a highlight of our week. Sorry, I'm way behind on the chat. Every time I hear Dwindle, I think Dark Souls. Oh, and what is this? Adolessa is the first time comment. Do you think that Google should add pro mode and to throw their ego away? Save that question for me when we get to the gadget block, because I have some Pixel 6 thoughts. I've still been using the Pixel 6. Primarily, it's been keeping my SIM card, but I have been bouncing it out so I can play with Duo 2. And again, I feel there are some nuanced pros and cons. And the reason why I'm being so sort of cagey with camera conversations and camera discussions is because I still feel like I can't really come to a conclusion on a Pixel 6 camera. I can't come to a starting point on a Pixel 6 camera until we see at least one more update. And then I feel like that's going to be the point where I can shoot a little heavier, really collect the samples that I use to analyze, and put together one of my stupid long camera deep dives. Because the other major video that went out, and this is one I can't put up on YouTube, it's way too long, the views will tank, and it's going to be bad for my YouTube metrics, so it's going to live on the Patreon. And I finished this video. I mean, I kind of wrote out a loose script, kind of a loose collection of talking points. And I got to the end of it and just went like, yeah, there's 0 point in me putting this up on YouTube. This video will tank. I'm just going to get a bunch of hateful comments about Sony marketing. And I need to kind of buffer this one, so it's only going to live in a safe space. On my Patreon, patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. So late last week, I finally got a 30-minute conversation posted on the Xperia Pro I. This is only on the main sensor. This isn't a full camera deep dive, but really had to dig into some of my concerns on the marketing, what the sensor performance actually resembles, why I still think it's an exciting addition to the smartphone camera landscape, and also some of the reasons that I think Sony is correct. You know, calling this a Pro is an extraordinarily different conversation than other companies that just slap Pro on to mean slightly more expensive. I feel Sony is being judged by the criteria of auto HDR on an iPhone when they are going out of their way to highlight a specific product for a specific demographic of actual working professionals who would appreciate these kinds of camera features. So, Xperia Pro I camera, 30 minutes long, and still not a full review. Plus, the Xperia that I was shooting on was an engineering sample, so that would just be grossly irresponsible of me to come to a conclusion on this phone. I got a really snarky comment on YouTube when I posted this just to my like YouTube community tab. And it was like, oh, I see all these reviewers out here and they're not even buying the phone. So what does that mean? That means there's no confidence even from people who are friendly to Sony. And you're like, I could leave your comment up, but you've wasted everybody's time with maybe the dumbest comment you could put out there, because the phone isn't even shipping yet. I mean, there's a part of me that's going to struggle real hard with spending $1,800 on an Xperia Pro I. And if I genuinely can't get a long-term loaner from Sony, I'm seriously looking at the budget, what I might need to do to fulfill an Xperia Pro I in the collection. Because again, I played that reviewer game with the Xperia 1 Mark III, and Sony could not keep the 1 Mark III in stock enough to give their PR additional samples to send back out to reviewers. And I'm worried. Xperia Pro I is probably going to be in the same boat. I can't imagine that they're going to make a lot of these, and I have to believe that every single one they make is probably already spoken for, like in terms of sales and pre-orders. So this to me is already kind of a critical success of Sony's international marketing and messaging. I just wish they weren't leaning so hard on the big, the big impressive benchmark spec bullet points, because that's not really what this phone is about. Sorry, I'm behind on the chat again. You know what? I am going to kick over the chat overlay just so that folks can kind of keep up from here what's going on. I mean, I'm not going to claim that I have the highest quality content, but I can handily point every single time I've done one of these longer form videos, they've tanked on YouTube. And people keep saying, well, just wait and then put them out. And you don't understand, like, if I put out a video that grossly underperforms, that's a detriment to my channel. Like, when I put the replay out on the podcast, that is bad for my channel. And so when I put so much work into, shooting samples and editing and putting the commentary together so that we can have a more nuanced conversation about camera gear, I can't have the twofold. All of that work getting wrecked, no reason to subscribe to the Patreon, and it's bad for my channel. So that's actually a triple threat right there. So unfortunately, until something changes where YouTube is a little more considerate to smaller channels or medium-sized channels like mine actually interacting with the people who've subscribed to my channels, I just can't suffer that much negative shenanigans on my videos. Awesome Possum, please private the video and link it on Insta or something. I mean, I finally did get the Instagram link, so maybe what I'll do is I'll link the Patreon post on Insta, but it's pretty great. It's not stupid long. Vasicos, it is a stupid long video. It's a half an hour on one camera sensor. You're like Gandalf, Juan. It's not longer or shorter. It's precisely what you meant. I appreciate that. That is very kind. That is too kind, considering my penchant for rambling. And Copycat, Sony absolutely crushes internationally. Unlike only Samsung and Apple are allowed in the conversation in the US. Gabaletta, I'm torn with Sony on this one about their marketing. Yes, the phone does have a 1-inch internally, but they cropped it to the equivalent of a 1/1.3. My math is correct, and that is where I have an issue. That is what I have an issue with. You're only right by a technicality. Yes. I mean, that's one of the things I address in this conversation. And after a point, I feel we come down hard on Sony. Allow me to soapbox for just a second. We come down hard on Sony, and I think that's fair. I feel this marketing is clumsy to say 1-inch sensor, 1-inch sensor, when there are phones that are genuinely using a full 1-inch sensor. I don't believe many consumers or many pros are really going to gravitate to a fixed aperture, full 1-inch sensor on a phone where you have no control over that aperture. F1.9 on a full 1-inch sensor on the back of a phone takes up a ton of space, makes the gadget more fragile, and is harder to control. You're shooting wide open all the time. And I don't believe there are any additional accessories or optics to help control that. Like, you're going to be using the same like filters and clip-on lenses that we have access to here. And I think that's also a problem because a lot of those clip-on filters and optics were designed for much, much smaller smartphone cameras. I've got some wide-angle adapters that vignette and basically crop your sensor horrifically because our sensors have gotten so large, but those optics were built around 1/3 inch sensors, not almost 1 inch sensors. So I completely appreciate those concerns. I feel if we're hitting the same energy for all manufacturers, we should be equally as upset by Samsung lying about hybrid zoom on their phones. So Galaxy S21 has hybrid zoom, but it's all pixel cropping. It's almost exactly the same focal length lens on almost exactly the same size sensor between their telephoto and their main sensor. So that's a lie. If we're going to be really worked up about Sony's clumsy marketing, we need to hit all manufacturers with that same energy. We need to be equally upset with Apple over the iPhone 12 Pro. iPhone 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max both had professional 12 megapixel camera systems, but only the 12 Pro Max had the larger sensor and the fancier image stabilization. So where was our ire? We were so busy picking apart the Pixel 5 for using a smaller camera sensor. Where was our ire over the $1,000 iPhone 12 Pro and Apple fudging the differences between those two phones? From $1,000 to an $1,100 phone, you got a completely different main camera sensor. So again, it's not to say like I don't think we should come down on these companies. I actually kind of love some of the energy coming down on Google for the Pixel 6. I think one of the reasons why I push back against the umbrage and the outrage and the ire is because we're only seeing it on the Pixel 6. We never hit Apple with that same energy. A small UI change on the Pixel 6 is a reason to consider not buying the phone. And if we cared that much about UI, then iPhones wouldn't sell like they do. If we cared that much about UI, one UI would have crashed and burned in its first generation. So I just need that same energy. You want to hit all phones with that same energy, that's great. No one will ever buy a phone ever again. All phones will just be equally terrible and we can just get off this train now. But where we're so selective about what things bother us and what are concerning and what become deal breakers for purchasing recommendations, that to me needs to be significantly more consistent because right now I don't feel it is. So while it bothers me that Sony's marketing made this really dumb clumsy, it still doesn't take away from the fact that this is a significant advancement for smartphone photography and one that I hope is revisited on other competing products. If Xiaomi is looking at this for their next Ultra and they aren't considering the application of a two-stage or a variable stage aperture on a huge camera sensor, their cameras aren't going to get better. They're going to keep being awkward solutions, especially for folks who like to shoot video. Oh, Aditya, you silly, silly boy, you. I thought he was crushing it on Only Juans. Only Juans does not get traffic because Only Juans does not exist. Oh no, I was dissing on Sam Apple. I'm sorry. See, I'm being real snarky about stuff like criticisms towards Apple and Samsung don't count because they're popular, and that's a comment from Maestro. And the thing is, I feel like, especially when companies make bigger, bolder claims and they occupy a larger chunk of the market, they should be held to a higher standard. I've been saying that since the Note 4, and where I absolutely loved the Note 4. Smaller issues with Samsung products from that point where I was ride or die Samsung Knight just before getting into my LG fixation. I felt like I still needed to hold them to that higher tier. If they're going to claim to be a market leader, that's where we should be analyzing them. Oh, Steve, dude. Steve Litchfield. Hey, Juan, remember the Nokia N86 having two apertures in 2009? I mean, you're always going to win my heart recalling classic Nokia. I mean, I'm still kind of flirting with the idea of tracking down an N8 just to have it. Just so many like incredible fond memories, especially back from that age of Nokia where they were genuinely outpacing consumer point and shoot cameras on their phones. Just such joyous, such joyous smartphone history, and I miss, I miss that that fun vibe of exploration on new, wacky, and crazy things. I don't know where it went. I had it on my desk. I always have my Note 4, and oh, it's over on the little desk over there. Dustadore saying, I remember Samsung Juan, especially with the Note 4. The Note 4 is still my teleprompter. I mean, like, I still use it on every single video I shoot. It is just too stinking good. It refuses to die, and it's such a perfect fit. All right, so that was housekeeping. 30 minutes into the show. Oh, Xenon Flash Photography. Gaboletta's got a comment here. And to give credit where credit is due, nobody is saying iPhones are bad phones or that they have bad cameras, but they don't exist in a vacuum. That's where we're stuck at. Educating the average consumer that Sam Apple are not the only two OEMs worth their time and money. You know, I think it's funny is the average consumers don't need that. We've seen sales shift. Average consumers buy average phones. I mean, I keep saying that, and it sounds dismissive or belittling, but from 2019 to, if we're looking at first half of year 2019, first half of year 2020, and first half of year 2021, Samsung has sold more phones year over year. Galaxy S sales are down 40%, and they are not meeting their sales goals for every tier of their foldable market. So foldables are not making up the difference in losing the Note and whittling down Galaxy S sales. Again, if we're so concerned about popularity, there is no argument for Samsung's strategy right now if your main confirmation bias is they're the mostest popular. Galaxy A is crushing right now. Galaxy A phones have never been better, have never been stronger. Amazing price to performance, fantastic features, and actually address the concerns of average consumers. It's only in our techie bubble that we're pretending that we've got to confirm a smaller and smaller and smaller audience of like insular tech enthusiasts, and that's what reality looks like. Reality does not look like that if Galaxy S sales are down 40% over 2 years. We need to criticize Samsung more and encourage competition so they improve their products. Because right now, just pretending that they're the default in Android land is bad for all of premium Android land. That being said, for most of my family, I'm pushing them to mid-rangers. Pixel A series is just ravaging the landscape of all my family and friend phone recommendations. Pixel 4a, Pixel 4a 5G, and Pixel 5a are in so many hands for my relatives right now. Those phones are just killing it. So that's exactly where I feel like we've got to acknowledge premium phones are going to continue to whittle down. Mid-ranger phones are exploding like crazy. Entry-level phones are getting disgustingly good. It's no big surprise folks don't want to keep spending $50 a month on a leasing plan or buy a phone for $1,200. My fixation with those premium tier devices comes down to very specific use cases. And if you don't fit those use cases, you should stay away. Like the Xperia Pro I gets an incredible recommendation from me. That phone is amazing. If you're a photojournalist that lives on the immediacy of getting data and content up to a newsroom, you should seriously consider the Xperia Pro I. I don't think anyone in my chat fits that. I don't think anyone in my chat is a photojournalist that lives at the bleeding edge of news delivery. I feel pretty strongly Xperia Pro I, probably not the best fit for most of the people. We would all love to play with one. I think we would all get a kick out of one. You should not spend $1,800 on that phone if you don't fit what I just described. And we need to have that same kind of energy for everyone else. Like what I just said about an Xperia Pro I totally fits an iPhone 13 Pro Max and a Galaxy S21 Ultra and a Xiaomi Mi 11 Ultra and a Vivo X70 Pro Plus and every other big expensive phone. I'm gonna drink some water now. And no, I mean, this is completely correct. I mean, since I've been reviewing gadgets, the most expensive smartphones went from being like $500 to being $1,800. And that's before we get into folding, right? So consumers have largely just kind of floated. $600 for a phone seems like the correct amount for most people to spend. What I need to do is re educate so many of those consumers to start kicking down. Like if you used to buy at like $600, you really should be looking to buy at $400 to $500 now, because that's how much tech has slid down the price tier. And if you don't need anything new, don't overbuy. Keep buying at the same tier, and you'll spend less and less money every time you upgrade your phone. Dustadori. I was once again, I was watching an unnamed podcast where they were once again somehow confused by the Xperia Pro I name, even after they talked about understanding the Alpha line naming conventions. Here's what I hope they'll do. I hope they'll refresh the other Xperia Pro and call it the Pro B. So you'll have an Xperia Pro I for imaging, and Xperia Pro B for broadcast. And then you could do the generation numbers, Xperia Pro I Mark II, Xperia Pro B Mark II, and you can build up from there. That's what I hope. I don't know that Sony is going to keep up with the other flavor of Pro, but I hope they do, because in the world of television broadcast, that is an amazing solution. Yeah, see, this is the thing. I mean, because Samsung is absolutely trying to manipulate sort of what the focus is, and that plays into the YouTube algorithm. Copycash writes, the influencers don't even get A series devices to review, yet they sell like crazy. Just goes to show how bad they are at reading the room. Again, there's something aspirational about making a ton of videos about a $1,200 phone. It's the same thing. I go into a car dealership and I want to see some fancy, exotic, hyper sports mobile, but I'm gonna leave that car dealership with a really fuel efficient, safety, family commuting vehicle. So I get the vibe on that, but I don't go lust over a fancy exotic car thinking that's what average consumers must drive because it's sitting here in the middle of the showroom floor. Average consumers. We don't pretend like that with any other market. Why we do this with phones, and it makes us look so stupid from the outside. If one of those average consumers wanted good insight on phones and they went to YouTube with a whole bunch of shocked faces and just video after video after video of $1,000 plus premium gadgets, would you pay any attention to this little enthusiast circle? Or would you just walk away, go to your carrier store, get a recommendation, throw down 20 bucks a month, 30 bucks a month on a year-old smartphone and call it a day because you just need to check your email and scan through Instagram when you're on the subway? I feel we've lost the pulse. Oh, see, Nam, I would absolutely love that too. An Xperia Pro G. Man, a smartphone built on gaming. So I don't think they should call it a Pro. I actually have that problem with the PlayStation. I really wish they weren't calling it a PlayStation unless they could demonstrate some kind of platform specific attributes that make sense for esports. And so the PlayStation Pro is just a more powerful PlayStation, kinda. It doesn't represent specifically built bespoke hardware for esports. Like that to me would make, okay, you can make an argument on Pro if this is a custom, or not custom, if this is a specifically built piece of hardware that is now an industry standard for competition around the world. I just can't. So I wish they would bring back an Xperia PlayStation phone. I know they would call it a Pro, but I wish they wouldn't. Same thing, like a Walkman phone would be really cool too. So why don't we kick through some news stories, because I've rambled on way too long here. And I can't let this podcast go to almost 3 hours like we did last week. So I want to start off, and this one, this is a story that we brought up some initial concerns a couple months back. There's going to be a new trend in using digital wallets on mobile devices for things like your driver's license, your insurance, transit. We're already seeing public transit, right? You can tap your phone and get on a bus. It's already being linked to your phone in a way that makes sense for you to not have to carry around a bunch of cards. I get way more concerned about a digital infrastructure that resembles our kit today also being one of the main resources or sort of ways to store very important or sensitive information like your driver's license. So I don't feel we've got law enforcement properly trained on digital rights and on illegal search or seizure. I don't believe we've got consumers trained on what their rights are and how they can best protect their content and their information and their devices. And I don't trust an Apple or a Google or an Amazon or any other or Microsoft with something this universal, right? It needs, we can't have significant teething pains. Oh, we'll finally get up to speed. This is something we all kind of need to agree on beforehand, what the process, implementation, and distribution of driver's license in your phone as viable identification material is really going to look like. I'm terrified of this personally because, again, I can't even keep a good authenticator app on one of my phones because I'm constantly switching phones. This is one of those examples of how a reviewer is absolutely not like an average consumer, because I would set up really good password and authenticating software on my phone and then just use that for 2 years. I don't get to do that. So I'm kind of deprived of one of the significant benefits of buying a phone and just living with that phone. So when we get a story like this about Apple, I feel this is yet another example of how we should more critically examine Apple marketing. It's not that this totally paints Apple in a bad light, but this doesn't live up to the fluffy, feel-good marketing material that we're just sort of spoon-fed from Apple and like one of the largest marketing machines on the planet. So this is coming by way of CNBC, written up by Hugh Sun and Kif Leswing. Apple is sticking taxpayers with part of the bill for rollout of tech giant's digital ID card. Key points from the article: Apple requires states to maintain the systems needed to issue and service credentials at taxpayer expense, according to contracts signed by 4 states. The agreements obtained through public record requests from CNBC and other sources mostly portrays Apple as having a high degree of control over the government agencies responsible for issuing identification cards. Apple has sole discretion for key aspects of the program. So the reason why this is concerning, Apple is making state governments sign contracts with exclusivity in similar ways to the ways that they work with app developers and that they license technologies for accessories. This should be very concerning because it also means we're likely not going to see an open market of ideas for how this is going to be implemented. If Apple signs, or if Apple forces a state government to sign some kind of exclusivity deal, the state government is on the hook for funding the implementation of that deal. And we don't know yet what is the process going to resemble for all of the people that are using Android phones to also participate with a state function of identification on your phone. Those are, whataboutisms and FUD, the fear and uncertainty and doubt of Apple conducting themselves in a way that's beneficial for everybody as opposed to just beneficial for Apple. But when we hear quotes like this from some of the researchers that have been digging through these agreements, It's like a vendor relationship, which makes no sense to me because it's the states that have the monopoly on what they're giving to Apple. They could presumably negotiate a much more equal contract, Makula said in an interview. I don't know of any other example where government-owned systems and identity credentials were made available for commercial purposes in this manner. And then CNBC follows up, Apple declined to comment for this article. This is why, one of the reasons why we just need a generational shift in government, right? We need younger and younger people participating in the political scene, and we need to push out 2 generations of lawmakers who are woefully ill-equipped to handle a changing marketplace. They're going to look at the surface elements of an Apple song and dance pitch and go, hey, you know what? They're going to do all this work for us. Isn't that great? And they're not going to look at what their relationships are as state legislators and how they're doing business with a $2 trillion company. Like Apple as a company probably controls more financial flow than some of the states that have signed these agreements. Apple becomes a larger government than the state government that they're doing business with. This is not okay. This is not how this should be going down. And a state government should be saying, we need to you know what this totally feels like? It feels like an old person who's been in office for a while, picks up his iPhone and goes, well, all the kids are using the iPhones. I guess we'll do business with Apple. And not realizing what a horrific, dystopian, monopolistic agreement that they're locking themselves into, that no one else will be able to compete, no one else might be able to participate to the same degree. What avenues for incorporating other products and services are going to be instilled here, and how do we protect the most vulnerable of consumers who are going to have to do business in a 21st century economy, might not be able to buy iPhones? You know, it's so many of those questions need to be thought about before you even approach an Apple, a Google, a Microsoft, an Amazon, a Facebook. Is so much to get wrong. And a tiny error in one small capacity could have a devastating impact on an individual. So, absolutely, we need to keep an eye on that one. Not great. And from Geek Madden, you don't become a $1 trillion company without exploiting someone. I mean, it used to just be dongles. Whew, man, and right to repair stuff. All right, this next one I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. This is an open wound of sensitivity. And I will preface this with the appreciation of your patience and how we're all going to be grown-ups and we're going to focus on just the tech of this situation for the purposes of a tech podcast. And because I appreciate the sensitivity of this story, if there are other conversations that need to be had, please feel free to reach out to me on social media, hit me up on Twitter, shoot me an email. This is such an emotionally charged story. I don't want to chill the catharsis of the conversation around a divisive political topic, but I need to highlight something technological, and it's really the only area I feel qualified to talk about this particular issue. I'm not a lawyer. I have no business weighing in on the finer points and nuances of a political trial that is being sensationalized, but I am a techie and I am a geek, so I feel qualified to comment on one aspect of the Rittenhouse trial. And this is also, I got to highlight an article that more beautifully sums up my concerns with this, written up by John Brodkin over at Ars Technica. So, you shall not pinch to Zoom. Rittenhouse trial judge disallows basic iPad feature. Let me get down to the article. When Kenosha County Prosecutor Thomas Binger cross-examined murder suspect Kyle Rittenhouse yesterday, he wanted to show Rittenhouse video on an iPad and use the touchscreen feature that phone and tablet owners around the world use every day, pinch to zoom. Judge Bruce Schroeder's ruling You shall not pinch to zoom. Schroeder prevented Binger from pinching and zooming after Rittenhouse defense attorney Mark Richards claimed that when a user zooms in on a video, quote, Apple's iPad programming creates what it thinks is there and not what necessarily is there, end quote. Richards provided no evidence for this claim and admitted that he doesn't understand how the pinch to zoom feature works, but the judge decided the burden was on the prosecution to prove that zooming in doesn't add new images to the video. This is horrifically bad precedent to set in a court of law. This is scary, this is authoritarian, and this is dystopian. The defense made a claim. As much as I can comment on philosophy and law, the member who makes the claim is responsible for verifying their claim. If the claim is zooming in an iPad or an iPhone is going to make up information, they need to have an expert witness. They need to bring in people from Apple. They need to bring in cinematographers or photographers or journalists. They made the claim to spread some kind of doubt as to the veracity of an image captured by an iPad. The burden of proof, I mean, in every rational consideration of debate, of discourse, in law, the party that makes the claim is responsible for verifying the claim. And to put the burden of proof on the prosecution to disprove the claim is grossly irresponsible. And it calls into question every single piece of video evidence that has ever been acquired by a digital camera that has been cropped in to better view someone in the act of committing a crime or in the act of defending themselves. If this precedent were to move beyond this one court case, it would undo decades of legal decisions. We would have to fundamentally restructure our entire process of gathering evidence and using things like cameras as reliable sources for evidence. And this is right at the heels of like deep fake technology and smarter algorithms and machine learning and AI and buzzword. This is bad. This is a bad take. This is a fantastically bad situation to arrive at in a 21st century court of law. And the way that it was disputed was already bad. The way that the judge reinforced the disputing of this evidence should be critically scary. We should, as nerds in this kind of a forum on this type of a streaming setup, we should absolutely be very concerned about the future of our legal system if these are the types of arguments that are being made about technology. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this story here. Please go read John Brodkin's work. He's a great editorialist. He does a phenomenal job of breaking down complex political and legal situations surrounding technology. And I've just genuinely enjoyed years of reading Ars Technica. Don't just give them a thumbs up on some kind of social media platform. Go to arstechnica.com, engage with their advertising, click on links, but read from the source to continue supporting this kind of phenomenally well-researched information gathering on very complicated issues. This is not something that we can just boil down into a simple like, oh, that's good, that's bad. The nuances of law and technology in the 21st century need to be explained and dissected and made meaningful. And we got to drag a lot of techies kicking and screaming into these conversations. We want to all act like we're above politics, but then terrible things are done in our name when we don't understand the legal ramifications of how these machines operate. So, yeah, let's do better. Just like, again, I feel like a lot of people became legal scholars on Reddit right after news of this trial started making it to the public. Want to take just a slightly different tact for our last news block story. Just as like a quick reminder, a quick tease. I also do a lot of editorial work for reviews.org. Really like the team over there because they've been allowing me to kind of play with some of these legal topics, like chatting about the FCC, taking a look at FTC policy. And recently we did a breakdown on reviews.org talking about an FTC study that just came out, which should also be kind of concerning, just how much of your personal data is being used and monetized by broadband providers and cell phone carriers. I mean, just, we get real anxious about Facebook. Well, the company that leases you access to the pipe that takes you to the internet is sifting through all of your internet pipe information before you go to the internet. And they make a lot of money on that. So when we start talking about monetization of behavior and advertising and how all of these things work together, I genuinely believe we need some new 21st century consumer bill of rights on how our information can be safeguarded, how it can be protected, more opportunities to opt into these types of services, where if you have a ton of information on me, you should be able to give me better service. And I don't think anyone is really upset about that, but it's the magic black box of my data goes in here and then they make a lot of money and I don't know how they did it. And that we should all be concerned about. That's the preamble, that's the preface. Our economy is so lopsided on data that Vizio just put out their most recent earnings, and they now make twice as much money from advertising and marketing and selling data as they do from selling TVs. This is written up by Mark DeGurin. I don't know why I threw a German tint on that. That's probably not how you pronounce Mac. Not Mark, Mac. It's probably not how you pronounce Mac's last name. Platform plus business segment made 57.3 million in gross profit, more than double the 25.6 million in gross profit it brought from actual device sales. So when you kick on that TV and you hit them terms of services and you hook up your Wi-Fi, man, your behavior has a value, and that is added to a bucket of data collection that these companies have gotten really good at monetizing. I still have a little Vizio TV here in my office. I'm fond of them as sort of reasonably priced television solutions. But it's just kind of shocking when we see those numbers just explicitly shared. The shareholders looking at this and then realizing it is way too profitable to not do things like this. You can't just make a better TV, sell it at a great price, and then say, hey, well, we're a hardware company and this is where we're going to make our money. Shareholders are always going to demand improved profits. And increasingly, it almost seems like we're getting to a point where you can cut finer and finer and finer margins on the hardware and reduce your profits in that area if you can make up so much more money by trafficking data on the back end. And who's going to be able to compete with that if companies like Vizio are able to demonstrate this? We know Samsung plasters ads on TVs. We know that they've got ridiculous, like if you try to wipe out a Samsung TV, it still kind of retains its ability to track information. Like you can't ever really wipe a Samsung TV to get it back to a completely dumb television panel state once you set it up. I mean, it's things like that that start to make this feel really gross. So just another thing to keep an eye on as you're making purchasing decisions, as you're doing business with streaming services, as you're looking at how you engage with your broadband provider. Basically, every step of the way, some company is trying to examine some part of your behavior and is trying to profit off of your interactions. And the only way that this is being disclosed is in hundreds of pages of legalese and a terms of service that is completely obfuscating the reality of that business model through a whole bunch of like binding arbitration agreements. You're like, it's a TV. At some point I just want to watch a movie, and I don't want to have to, put a lawyer on retainer just to understand what my liability is by pushing the power button on my remote control. So, sorry, I just got this one. Hold on, let me see if I can find Ted's comment. Maybe you can explain how ISPs can sell your data, but when you ask your ISPs for your own data they can act like they have no way of knowing that info. So that's actually one of the things we address in that reviews.org video from the FTC. The FTC explains a lot of that business practice. It's a 70-page report. It's really not a hard read. And if you want to see from government researchers what like the top 6 ISPs in the country are doing, they cover like roughly 80% of the data-enabled population. Questions like that are explored. Again, you go to the ftc.gov website, you pull up this report. It's not difficult to read through it. I mean, it's even written for like a politician's reading level, right? So it's not difficultly worded. It's not like full of a whole bunch of techno jargon that we're not going to be able to understand. We understand this stuff better than our lawmakers do. But stuff like that, yeah, there's a process. They even have a flow chart. They drafted a graphic to explain how data brokering is working through broadband providers, and especially those who say we don't sell your data or we offer you better privacy controls, how that's largely not true. I mean, it's not a lie. Legally, they have crafted a relationship with organizations to maintain plausible deniability in a legal sense, but philosophically, it's a lie. Yeah, see, from Mac right here, Mac Hal, you can take a loss on hardware and make profits on software. That's how the current market is built. And again, I feel like this is going to be a fundamental shift in the next phase of the internet. When some millennials actually start occupying seats of power and Gen Z after them start following up on services, I feel this is one of those things that there will be an opportunity to change, but we got to get 2 generations of people out of the way, even into like Gen Xers, like right on the cusp of being millennials like me. I mean, I'm never going to be in the way because Gen X is like the most apathetic, tiny little division of a generation. We're just the translation generation. We can talk to all the people who only understood rotary phones, and we were alive at the dawn of all of the services that people take for granted today. So we just get to kind of be stuck in the middle because there are way too few of us to do anything, so we just gave up. Increasingly, I kind of side with the millennials, but that's just me. Oh, Barry Johnson's just lurking in the chat. Everyone say, hey, Barry Johnson, he's a real cool dude. And you should follow his Engineer Reacts videos on YouTube. He's driving cross state. Keep your eyes on the road, and hopefully the droning on of my rambling is entertaining enough to not have you fall asleep at the wheel. So that's the end of the news block. I'm going to take another drink of water here, and we got to plug the subreddit. Excuse me. So I managed to close out housekeeping and news in an hour, even though I rambled on way too long about about housekeeping. We've got to plug the Reddit. This was a phenomenal week on the Reddit. Last week, reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles, I took 4 of the top 5 spots. And just pointing that out, we saw a significant uptick in people sharing content on the subreddit. You didn't want my face all over the top of the subreddit, and I think that worked for getting some amazing stuff upvoted. Reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. Every podcast has a subreddit. My podcast is no exception, but it's not a me subreddit. It's not just a place to tell you guys how awesome I am because you're already in this live stream, so you already know how awesome I am. What we want to do is try and build a platform that can help promote content that we feel deserves more attention. It can be from a major YouTuber. We had someone last week who was in the top 10 with 800,000 subscribers. We also had people in the top 10 that had under 1,000. So when we put those pockets of communities together, we just want to take a step away from the YouTube sorting algorithm. And we want to say to other people, I thought this was cool. I think you should check it out. If you want to self-promote your own stuff, that's cool too. But we want to get those upvotes, those comments. We want to support more content. And often that's going to be smaller content creators and especially international content creators. But we want to get that message out there. And this is one of the ways I've been trying to build a platform. Every week we see more people subscribing. We're now officially over 2,100 subscribers, 2,100 members on the subreddit. And we're seeing this regular growth. I'm finding new stuff every single time I visit. This is becoming one of my sanctuary websites. My own subreddit is where I kind of seek solace from the rest of like tech YouTube. Reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. Number one, not an article, not a video, not some hot take or commentary. Literally just someone sharing some astrophotography from the Pixel 6 Pro. Again, telling a story by just sharing some fun low light night shots and long exposures. And again, instead of complaining about a phone by reading a spec sheet and looking at a price tag, we've got people that are genuinely just trying to join and tell stories about what they're actually doing using their phones. Number two, one of the videos that I was most looking forward to on the Poco M4 was not my video, it was Issa Does Tech. Issa Does Tech, a Poco M4 Pro 5G budget 5G alternative. And I love her take on technology, especially for how refreshing it is to hear someone with very different needs and very different wants also talk about style. Her videos are very stylish, and her commentary on tech is very stylish. Then number three, Duo 2 commentary from Scary If Literal, Shane Craig's channel. This video has issues breaking down the brutally negative short circuit video on the Microsoft Surface Duo 2. So I try not to do a lot of calling out hot take. Let me break down this review and review the review so you understand how this reviewer got all this stuff wrong. Like specifically for my channel and for my website, there are 3 hyper-specific instances that I like to point to where review trends have gotten out of hand. Maybe it's a commentary about the LG G8. Maybe it's a reaction to a terrible video about the Xperia 5 Mark II. Or maybe it's an obviously rigged camera discussion against the Pixel 5. Those are the 3 that I've broken my rule to highlight or call out specific tech channels, tech reviewers. And it brings me little joy when tech YouTube becomes a drama circle. We're not talking about the gadgets, we're reviewing the reviewers. We're not actually having fun, we're just all falling into that toxic pit of drama. That being said, this Scary If Literal video is flippin' hilarious. And if you ever wanted kind of the hot take on the Duo 2 from someone who really does like the Duo 2, I would highly recommend this video. In much the same way that I put myself out there to review a review of the Xperia 5 Mark II and point out all of the review fallacies and all of the shenanigans and why they're aping up this drama for dramatic entertainment effect. I feel this video nails it. Like Shane nails the criticism of the criticisms. And he gets to the end of the video and starts talking about bad infomercial hand acting from reviewers and how 2 speakers on a phone actually is stereo speakers. And I feel he has absolutely earned the ire and the snarkiness of the presentation of this video. in the most delightful fashion. So, Scary If Literal hitting our number 3 spot, a review of a review on the Duo 2. So, some good stuff. Just wrapping up the rest of the subreddit. We've got some killer content creators here. We've got a Pixel 6 video from Ike's Tech Talk. I keep wanting to say Ike Talks Tech, and that's not the name of his channel. His channel is Ike's Tech Talk. We've got some doofus with a punchable face and a flat cap talking about the Poco M4. We've got Sneed Mobile Tech checking out some T-Mobile 5G upgrades. And we've got Dakota Neff. I just want to point this one out. Google Pixel 6 sort of seafoam review in comparison, plus a look at the official Pixel case. He's in the top 10. He has 9 subscribers. I want you all to think, when was the last time you saw a video on YouTube from a reviewer with 9 subscribers? And I guarantee you, if I go to this video and I watch this video to completion and I click subscribe on his channel, that the recommendations for other YouTubers to follow are not going to be similar content. They're going to be much, much larger channels, or they're going to be, different kinds of like lifestyle or vlogging commentary. YouTube will not take my behavior into account where I went out of my way to watch a video from a creator with 9 subscribers and find me other content that's going to fit a similar homegrown grassroots vibe. That's never going to happen. YouTube is always going to try and push me towards already proven popular tentpole kinds of creators where they just open up the fire hose for subscribers on those guys. But everyone else, it's a meritocracy of making good content and SEO and following the trends and always doing your work. Maybe you need to have 5 different thumbnails for a video so that your video can trick the algorithm into being more popular. You're just not working hard enough to reach all the people that subscribe to your channel. That's your problem. All those other like million subscriber channels, they don't need to do that. They're all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. That's just what I'm saying. Reddit.com/r/glowing-rectangles is my attempt to help address some of that disparity in our conversation. And like I said, every week I'm coming to these charts and I'm coming to these rankings and I'm looking at the videos that have been shared and supported and upvoted and people that are starting to leave more comments, getting into conversations on the subreddit. And that's the kind of thing that I want to see grow. It's becoming a real community where people will want to participate with that kind of content. And I would never have found a channel with 9 subscribers putting his own money and commentary into talking about a Pixel 6. I mean, I feel like that's kind of special, and I feel like this is what gets really exciting about making the internet smaller again. Instead of trying to hype some kind of viral, big view count, instead we're getting back to a community idea where we can nerd out about this stuff and not feel the omnipresent pressure of Facebook and Google telling us what to like. We can kind of step aside and say, oh no, these are the things I like. I would just like to find more people like that. Reddit.com/r/glowing-rectangles. Tell them Juan sent you because I'm the main moderator there. So you'll be telling me that I sent you to me. I think it works. So Streaming Boys, this is a good point, but I don't resemble this because I guess I'm not an average consumer. I remember when techies were freaking out that the Pixel 5a overheated doing 4K 60 frames per second. Average consumers are not shooting 4K 60. Sometimes you got to call out the crap that techies clutch their pearls about. I shoot 4K 60. I am that nerd. I have to acknowledge I don't know anyone else who shoots like me. I genuinely don't. Not even other content creators, because they're all trying to shoot cinematic. I'm trying to shoot hyper crisp editorial. Like, I don't care if it looks entertaining. I care that I can properly demonstrate to the best of my ability what I'm observing and using a gadget. It's this dumb philosophical documentary thing I've got in my head. But even for my family stuff, I shoot 4K 60 if I can. What's never hampered me is the roughly 5 to 10 minutes of 4K 60 that I can shoot from a Pixel 5a. I've never sat down to shoot incredibly long takes of 4K 60, even on my OnePlus 9. The OnePlus 9 Pro has a 5-minute limit on their 4K 60 video. And if you're in hot conditions, like it's going to be another 90-degree day here in Southern California today. If I take a OnePlus 9 Pro out there, I'm not going to get to my 5-minute limit. It's going to thermal throttle it at around 3 minutes. I mean, that's kind of the ballpark that I already just have in my head. And that's only if I haven't already been using the phone hot to begin with. So that still hasn't hampered me. When I'm shooting Lex and I'm taking all these videos, she's at soccer practice, she's doing cute stuff. I can slow down that footage if I want to do like a half speed or a sort of a third speed slow motion. Like 4K 60 has been baller. And I just know I'm going to be shooting short clips and sticking those clips together. I'm not going to sit there and shoot 45 minutes of soccer practice in one continuous take. And who would ever watch that? Even when years ago on the LG V50, I shot a video of her very first fancy haircut at a salon. I'm just bursting clips all over the place. 4K 60, 4K 60, 4K 60. I think the time limit was also like 5 or 8 minutes on the V50. I'm never gonna get to that limit because I'm not shooting continuous 10-minute clips of my daughter's first haircut. No one will ever want to watch that. But what I ended up with at the end of all of this was footage to put together a hyper cute 2-minute kind of master cut of her first haircut. From walking into the salon, getting her hair washed, getting stuff braided, snipped, clipped, getting little bows and ribbons put in her hair, getting a lollipop at the end, skipping outside, getting a reveal shot of what the finished haircut looks like. And I set that to the soundtrack of Janelle Monáe. You know, like my daughter's gonna look at that 2-minute video of her first haircut and go, hey, cool, that's the vibe of what that looked like. She's never gonna say, I need to see the remaining 30 minutes of footage that you didn't put into this video. I need to see every moment of me being a fidgety 4-year-old not sitting still for a haircut. No one is ever going to be interested in that. I kept all that footage because I'm an archivist for my family, but I kept it knowing no one's going to care. So again, yeah, let's be real upset about not being able to shoot an hour of 4K 60 on a Pixel 5a. But I feel, again, we're being a little inconsistent about how we're complaining about mid-ranger phones, especially when so many phones around that price tier just can't even shoot 4K 60. Like, you're not going to shoot 4K 60 on a Poco M4. You're not going to shoot 4K 60 on a TCL. You're not going to shoot 4K 60 on an LG Velvet with the same processor. Like, again, I feel we're just being inconsistent in our outrage. Sorry, I'm way behind on, on all this. From MacHal9, how did you come up with the name Glowing Rectangles? So this has always just been, so Glowing Rectangles, the subreddit was originally gonna be the me subreddit. I was so pissed off with some of the larger tech subreddits where me and a handful of other content creators were trying to share content and we were always getting flagged for self-promotion. This was like back in the days of the Bored at Work weekly podcast. I would try and share content from Enabong's channel and then they would flag it, oh, but you're just self-promoting. And you're like, I'm literally not. I have nothing to do with the production on this channel, though I show up on his podcast from time to time. And same thing, if I would ever share anything that I'd made, it would instantly get scrubbed. And even more recently, I've had people on Patreon reach out and say, hey, I tried to share this on our Android and they banned me for self-promotion. And you're like, apparently I can be everywhere in the world sharing my own content because those moderators are real good. So the idea became like a self-promotion subreddit. And just in my head, I've always just kind of factored in our use and our talking about the sea of glowing rectangles that we're constantly surrounded by. And to me, it's kind of a dystopian but reassuring idea that all of the problems that come from these things will probably be solved by making these things better. You know, in a very science fiction-y, aspirational kind of idea. So that's sort of where the name came from. It's a place to talk about these the constant bombardment of light sources that our eyes and fingers and ears interact with. So reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. All right, let me catch back up with the chat here. Yeah, see, Streamy Boys, again, if you know, you know. So Streamy Boys writes, I shoot all my family events in 4K 60, but that's because I'm the family documentarian. I'm becoming the family archivist. So I know that feel. And it's sad because at the same time, like, I know there's so little content of me. In so many of these family memories, like, there's one half-assed selfie at the end of a Thanksgiving dinner. And like, that's what I get. But I got footage of like my dad carving the turkey and my mom doing the stuffing and my sister making the dough, and I like close-ups on our hands, and we've got dinner rolls, and this Thanksgiving, I'm gonna shoot it anamorphic. My family videos, Thanksgiving 2021, because we're finally all vaxxed and able to kind of congregate loosely in one big house. I've got an optic that's going to show up tomorrow. I'm shooting it on phone still. I'm not going to be, you know, trying to figure out better lens and optics for my mirrorless cameras. But I'm going to shoot Thanksgiving 2021 anamorphic. A 1.55 times adapter. We're going to do the D-squeeze in Filmic, and I'm still probably going to edit it all on the phones, but it's all going to be edited like very wide angle. It's got that nice oval bokeh to lighting elements. It's going to kind of pop figures from the background in a really interesting way. It's going to kind of stretch and distort to the edges. It's a really dirty and soft frame, but it's also going to look really cool when we're working with food and landscape shots and like, you know, mountain desert, you know, as some of my B-roll. This is going to be the most cinematic Thanksgiving video I'm ever going to put together. But that's because I care. Sorry, I kind of went off there. I'm really excited. I've got a good ND filter if I wanted to kind of do some light control stuff. I've got a good macro lens now. Macro lenses are getting tough because our camera sensors have been getting bigger. And so if you have a macro adapter for a smaller camera sensor, it doesn't work right anymore. So I had to get a larger. I've got a 37mm thread macro adapter. And then again, I've got the small rig. So I've got a proper phone cage to shoot in. Really, the only thing I haven't kind of finished deciding on is whether or not I'm going to shoot on the Vivo, or if I'm going to, because I'm so familiar and I trust my V60 so much. Excuse me. If I'm going to take back, if I'm going to bring the V60 out of retirement to shoot this one, or if I'm going to go ahead and go with the Vivo. If you caught my Instagram last night, I shot just a phenomenally crispy 32-second exposure night shot of streaking taillights and headlights off the 101, and the Vivo with an ND filter, just so pretty. Like, so this sensor is so good. I might want to step up and shoot video off of this sensor, but with that anamorphic adapter on it. So we'll see. It's pretty heady stuff. It's going to be fun though. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm definitely going to learn a lot about what not to do trying to shoot sort of more cinematic from a phone. So that'll at least be interesting. Yeah, again, Mac, exactly that. When you're the photographer, videographer, but nobody else is there to take photo and video of you. And I don't mean to pick on some of my family members, because I do occasionally show up in some other footage. But it's always like just that worst kind of like limp-wristed portrait photo. Like, I framed you as like 1/4 of the frame in a portrait shot, backlit, bad lighting, and you're making kind of a goofy face. And that's the photo I get. I'm trying to get in, I'm using like the telephoto sensor on a Pixel or on the Vivo, and I'm getting like these nice, close crop frames. I'm making sure the background is nicely, soft compared to the feature of the subject that I'm trying to focus on. I'm shooting raw so I can kind of bump up some color. Those are the photos that I try to put out of my family and friends. And then I get like, hey, here you're holding this beer and looking down at your phone and your stomach looks real fat because I shot you with the wide angle. You're like, why would you do that? Just one flattering image of me would be nice. Just that would be nice. Speaking of, I'm doing the family Christmas cards on the Vivo this year. So we did a little shoot, holiday sweater shoot out in the field by our new place, and set up the Vivo on a tripod, did all the voice actions to do the remote shutter, used the 2x zoom sensor, which is more of that kind of portrait sensor from the X70. The shots look phenomenal. So I'm gonna still probably put a little emoji over Lex's face. But the rest of that shot came out looking real good. I mean, it's hilarious. It's gonna look awesome on a Christmas card. So yeah, good times. DTNL, some David Fincher guy. I'm hoping that the anamorphic adapter that I have got gives me some good light streaks, but I'm real nervous that a phone optic, which is sort of like a whole bunch of glass on top of your phone lens, is going to give me light flaring like J.J. Abrams. I don't want J.J. Abrams flaring for Thanksgiving. That is not what I'm going for. So that one might be a bit of an issue. Well, no, I'm not doing the ND filter inside. Inside, I need natural light. TED Talks Tech. Ooh, your home must be lit. No, I'm going to be doing low light and long exposures out in the desert. Oh, Barry, thanks so much. Barry says my long exposure was fire. And Dustadori also saying that was a good shot. I was really happy with how that came out, because also that was a fast setup. I'm on a real small chunk of sidewalk on the 101 with my tripod kind of very awkwardly angled against a chain link fence. And I've got to set it up for a 32-second exposure. And I ran that shot 4 times. So I was there for a grand total of about 3 minutes. And the last photo that I landed, just like, oh, that's perfect. Cool. Pack it up. Get off this overpass and get back to the safety of my car. So I was really happy with how that came out. So we do have a couple things here in the gadget block that I do want to touch on. I'm going to say this is getting into our last half hour here. I really can't go super long, and my voice is already a little scratchy, and I've got to shoot 2 more videos immediately after we're done with this podcast. But I did want to share some of my heartache. One of the gadgets I was most looking forward to coming into the end of the year just got delayed. I put out a Twitter poll just asking, like, is this a pre-order that I stick with? I'm probably not going to be getting one of these things until April or May now, just because of the timeline and the sort of how the pre-orders went. But I'm real sad. Steam Deck is delayed 2 months, and now people who pre-ordered right at the beginning of the pre-orders won't be getting theirs until February of 2022. And this knocked me, like I said, deep into Q2 2022. I'm just real sad. I wish this weren't happening. I was really hoping, I was like, fingers crossed, if we get to the end of the year and a bunch of people had pre-orders in, but maybe a few people drop out, like maybe I could make it higher up if not everybody was trying to jump on pre-orders and stuff, or like let their pre-order lapse. But unfortunately, it looks like that's just not going to be the case. So I'm real sad. I'm very anxious. I think PC gaming needs some kind of disruption. I'd love to see some proper competition for handheld gaming and Switch style gaming. Yeah, I'm just, again, I was heartbroken when no, I was excited when I saw the email because the email subject line only said your Steam Deck pre-order, and so often that would be the completion of that sentence would be your Steam Deck pre-order has been billed or is shipping or your credit card information has been charged, something. And then I open up the email as your Steam Deck order has been delayed. And you're like, oh man, it was such a high and then an immediate crash. So I was super upset about that. Oh, real quick, Steamy Boys. Streamy Boys asks, anybody know where to get any cool smartphone camera accessories like a phone gimbal stabilizer, not Amazon? My go-to of late has been B&H. bhphoto.com. I do have an affiliate account. I don't think I've ever gotten a click on any of my B&H affiliate links, but almost everything that I've purchased recently, minus the small rig. The small rig I did get from Amazon, but the hand grip for the small rig I got from B&H, and most everything else recently I've been getting from B&H. So for example, the anamorphic adapter I'm getting is not the Moment lens because the Moment uses that little bayonet, and what I wanted was a 37mm thread. That doesn't exist. So what you have to do is get a 37mm to 17mm step down ring to use a 17mm filter or 37mm lens adapter. Sorry, my brain couldn't put those numbers together. When I shopped the anamorphic lens on B&H, it was $15 cheaper than the exact same optic on Amazon. So the Moment lens, I think the 1.5 times squeeze lens is around $100. The similar, obviously it's not the Moment lens, so I'm hoping that the glass is as good as the glass that's used on the Moment lens, but the anamorphic adapter that I bought from B&H is going to be roughly 60 bucks. So it was about 75 on Amazon. So, like it's really not too hard, especially when you're talking about tech, electronics, and gadgets and stuff. It's not too hard finding some alternatives to Amazon. And then I feel a little bit better with B&H a lot of the time because they don't run like other resellers. B&H sources stuff and ships stuff, and that's it. So you're always just doing business with B&H. As far as I know, they don't run like a community flea market like Amazon has become. So I feel like there's less opportunity for you to get bad product or to get like a counterfeit or something like that. This podcast not sponsored by B&H Photo and Video. Yeah, and again, I like there are like AliExpresses and Banggood and other places where you can source product and stuff. For me, it's also just like an element of trust, whether or not I know I'm going to be getting like exactly what the thing is that they're describing, and that it's kind of being stocked and sourced by a company that focuses on premium electronics and like professional grade camera equipment. But yeah, when it comes to phone stuff, I've been getting real excited about doing some more shooting from my phone. Just another real quick news story. Apple has sort of walked back their policy on screen repairs. People are taking this to be some kind of like significant victory for right to repair. It's just walking back one bad policy that Apple tried to push. I feel this is something that's going to creep up for the next iPhone. I feel it's very likely that Apple isn't learning the error of their ways. It's just like, oh, this one got us some bad press a little too fast, and the iPhone 13s already don't seem to be selling as fast as the iPhone 12s were over the same period of time last year. Let's just try and stem some of that marketing, some of that messaging bad blood. But if you want, what I'm going to link in the comments isn't the article about Apple walking it back. I've got two articles from iFixit. And I feel like this shows a clear separation of how companies can address similar issues with the repairability of their gadgets. So what we need to be on the lookout for and vigilant is Apple doing something like this again. So this is the headline: Apple's new screen repair trap could change the repair industry forever. They've got a video that accompanies this, and this also kind of falls in line with a lot of the commentary from Hugh Jeffreys. So I would highly recommend, keeping an eye on iFixit and keeping an eye on Hugh Jeffreys for some of this commentary. And then, of course, for Right to Repair, everyone should be checking out Luis Rossmann from time to time from Rossmann Group. But they've got a full breakdown on what it takes to repair the screen on an iPhone, why it has nothing to do with security, and how they're encouraging this terrible business practice of having to replace individual chips that actually make their products less secure. So the whole process of saying, well, it's about security and it's about keeping your phone safe is all not true. Because especially if there were a bad actor trying to get into an iPhone through some kind of process like a screen repair, just to repair the screen, there's already a way to desolder, decouple one component, solder on a new one, and then that verifies the screen and you're pretty much good, so you can get in. So Apple has done a terrible job of verifying the security of their products, making them more secure, and all they've done is made the repair more difficult. So they walked back from the ledge of that absolutely miserable change in their business policy, but they're still the absolute worst at encouraging any kind of healthy marketplace around third-party repair. They lock their products down the worst, they serialize components the worst, and they work aggressively to make sure no one can source products. So if you try to get a replacement product for an Apple machine, what people often have to do is break another gadget to get the components that will then work to be replaced for the Apple machine. And we know Apple's going to get increasingly stringent about that in an age of Apple Silicon, where you can't upgrade RAM, you can't upgrade storage, you can't change anything on the inside of that machine, but you'll be able to, swap the battery. So that's cool. You can run it forever. You'll never be able to get a better machine out of what you bought, but you'll be able to fix the battery. So this is bad. I mean, if we really care about the environment and we really care about abusing consumers and making the marketplace, sort of a healthier place for competition, if we don't want to have all our eggs in one basket, one of the most recent scandals of people abusing a repair device came from an Apple authorized repair center. It was that someone found adult compromising images on a woman's phone. And not only did they dig through her personal content, they shared her photos on her personal Facebook to shame her. And that was an Apple authorized repair center that did that. So this FUD of, well, you never know. You never know. You might give your phone to a repair shop and there's a bad actor who digs through all of your personal files. Except Apple hired someone that did that. So there you go. I guess it could happen to anyone, anywhere. Maybe that's not the fear and uncertainty and doubt that we should be sharing. But the other iFixit story, last week we talked about Hugh Jeffreys did a breakdown on the Pixel 6 Pro and how encouraging it was that Google, while they're serializing parts, like they're keeping a record of the fingerprint scanner that goes into a phone, they're keeping a record of the cameras that go into their phones, none of that serialization impacts repairability. So Hugh Jeffreys does this amazing thing where he always takes two models of the same phone and he swaps parts. And if you swap the parts, those were official, authentic manufacturer parts. They went into one phone and we're taking them out of that one phone and we're putting them into another version of the same phone. And on an iPhone, increasingly that breaks the phone. It doesn't matter that the screen is an approved Apple official screen. It doesn't matter if it's an approved Apple official camera. The phone is looking at the part and saying, that's not the part that you put in me. I'm broken now and I just don't work. and your security's compromised and you can't get battery stats and you can't take photos anymore. So you're locked out. You have to have the entire Apple ecosystem of repair guide software, authorization. You go to a Genius Bar, they've got to be able to verify the components and source them and tell the phone this is okay. And Apple doesn't give access to any of that. So Google is also serializing components in their phones, but if you swap the cameras on the Pixel 6 Pro, nothing happens. The cameras are still fully functional. They still completely work. The phone recognizes that this hardware is approved hardware, and it just sort of adapts to what's in there. That could change, but we've got to judge by today, right? We don't buy phones on the promise of what they might do in the future, or we don't dismiss phones on the concerns of what they might do in the future. So here today, camera swapping, totally fine. The fingerprint sensor broke, but Google makes a tool available that runs through your browser to re-verify a fingerprint sensor replacement. So it's serialized. It's a security feature on the phone. The phone needs to know what is it that I'm verifying the encryption and security on this device, but you can retrain that software on your own. So Hugh Jeffries kind of demonstrated that and put it together, and I felt like that was an incredible demonstration to show the differences in right to repair. If you care about the repairability of your gadgets, if you care about having access to the internals, not just buying a new product whenever something small breaks on it, but trying to get the most out of every gadget purchase, I feel there are substantial differences to point to between Apple, Samsung trying to copy Apple, and Google trying to forge some different relationship with repair shops. Hugh Jeffries, grossly underrated. Please give him a subscription. But the same thing, iFixit, instead of gadget destruction porn, I love the immaculate teardown photography and some of the little witticisms that go into their teardowns. So I don't need to break a phone. What I want to see is clinically how that phone fits together, what all the parts and components and pieces and chips are going to look like, and knowing that that's going to be the data that goes into repair guides, like how third-party repairers and home hobbyists are going to be able to fix those gadgets. So please, like I said with Ars Technica, don't rely on someone else doing an abbreviated, sort of look at this. I'm talking about this not because I just want traffic off of iFixit's work. I want you to go to ifixit.com and look through their guides. And if you're into this stuff, you're gonna dig what they've actually, how they actually format this stuff. So just to kind of screen share this a little bit, the Pixel 6 Pro teardown, Google actually did something right. And it's just a great write-up on how they took this phone apart. So they're gonna be coming back with all of the full, the full photography and everything. But this write-up just getting into, and also I love this, they actually reference the Hugh Jeffries teardown in their article. In stark contrast to Apple's behavior, we have Google's Pixel 6 Pro. Thanks to Hugh Jeffries' teardown, we know these phones have a similar software trigger that disables a fingerprint sensor if the display is replaced. But Google has done something right here. Let's open this up and see what's going on. Absolutely love it. Love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Just, so good. Chef's kiss. Mwah. iFixit. Adore. So, it kind of gets us through the news on the gadget block. I don't know how huge Hugh is, but his content is amazing. His channel's big, but again, you can look at all the trends. If he puts out a Samsung video, he gets like an extra 0 on his view count. If he puts out an Apple video, he gets an extra 0 on his view count. When I found his Pixel 6 teardown, I think it was maybe cranking 100,000 views, and I think it might now be up to around 3, like over a week later. And you're like, if that were an iPhone video, that Google would be pushing it so much harder. Oh, but it's all about whether or not people are searching for it. BS. Do not sell me that garbage. Hugh has a crazy following. People like me, die hard I want to know the instant a Hugh Jeffries video is out, and I want to watch it. And I don't get notified. I've smashed that bell icon. I'm coming to his videos like 3 days later if I'm only watching for YouTube recommendations. And I'll watch the video, and then like 2 days later, I'll get a notification. There's a new Hugh Jeffries video, and I get all excited. And then I go, and it's the video I've already seen. WTF, YouTube. You could not be more transparent in not doing what you claim to be doing with things like subscription and bell icon. It is such garbage, but I digress. Yeah, Hugh is awesome. I mean, just absolutely awesome. I love it. So, we're kind of getting to the end here. Got about 15 minutes left. I remember someone asked me a question about the Pixel 6, and now I can't remember what the question was or who asked it, so I do apologize for that. If someone can remind me, we can dig into that. Coming up on the channel, I've got a Sony Xperia, sort of a shorter editorial video that's going to be coming out. I've got to look at the Duo 2. I don't know where I'm going to be at for shooting a longer camera discussion on the Duo 2, but I feel like summing up the Duo 2 is going to be pretty easy. And tomorrow, I'm going to try and get a video out on these bad boys. These are the Earfun Free Pro 2. Another just brilliant entry in tech-forward, fully featured gadget companion earbuds, but not at a wallet-wrecking price. So joining like like my edifiers, I've been doing a lot of Earfun. They've been so good for like these as low-cost solutions. But they also face the toughest competition in earbud land that we've ever seen. You're shopping earbuds sub $100 or around $100. Oh man, is that competition fierce? Oh, Gabaletta, thank you. Gabaletta and Simon Says Hypno. General vibes, Pixel 6 for Pro mode, on the Pixel 6. So Pixel 6 Pro, we talked about this a little bit. We might have talked about it on Best of Our Week. I can't remember if I was rambling about this on my podcast or on the joint show with TK Bay. For as much as I respect Sony calling Pro like a label used for legit narrow band professional use, it does make me a little cranky that Google has called the Pixel 6 a Pro. It feels more like a Plus, it feels more like an XL. It doesn't achieve Pro. I gotta say, the more I shoot with the Pixel 6 Pro, the more I lean into the telephoto sensor, where normally I'm the ultra wide guy. Like, like on a OnePlus 9 Pro, I'm crazy excited about how good the ultra wide camera is on the OnePlus. And on the Pixel 6, I don't use the ultra wide as much because it's kind of an older feeling fixed focus. It feels like I'm going back to like an LG G8, right? Like, it's not a bad ultra wide. It's great for like a panoramic view of a landscape, but it's not as useful. I can't focus. It's just okay. So, again, for someone like me choosing between a Pixel 6 and a Pixel 6 Pro, the telephoto is pretty good. That 48 megapixel half-inch sensor pixel binning piece of hardware is making excellent use of the current Pixel app. I can't say that's worth $300, but when you don't have it, you kind of miss it. So like when I go over to my Vivo, the Vivo telephoto, not as good. Just not as good. And I pulled off a photo. So Lex was in a fancy dress for some of our holiday photos yesterday. And almost everything was shot on the Vivo, but I got 2 shots, head and shoulders. So she's wearing this fancy like maroon dress and her hair is just kind of like lightly tousled in the wind. And I used the 4x telephoto. Like I didn't zoom in from there, I just used it at 4x. And I framed a head and shoulder. The background is just beautifully compressed. The HDR lit her up perfectly. She was under shadow, but it drew out the highlights of her face. And you're like, that is, for me, kind of representative of Google cameras at their best. In a moment, auto HDR, I'm capturing a smile from my daughter, and that's kind of what I need a Pixel to be. I wish Google would give us more control, but I have to respect their philosophy. They don't do pro modes, but they want to know why you want a pro mode. So look at every major improvement to the Google camera app, things like astrophotography. You know, like it probably would just be better from a photography standpoint to have a pro mode where I have control over the ISO and the shutter speed. I can set up a long exposure on my own. What I demonstrated on the Vivo, when I know what I need, I can set it up, accomplish it tactically fast, get exactly the results that I want out of it, and be on my way. But that's not who a Pixel's built for. So we play this game of when the phone detects that it's not being held by human hands, it offers you the option of a longer exposure for astrophotography. And I get it. I understand Google's decision and how that works for the core consumer demographic that Google is trying to appeal with their phones. But it does bum me out, right? Because I run into roadblocks where Google's solution doesn't allow me to finish off a shot the way I would want. So I think, you know, in sharing, I did a long exposure of a freeway at night. I didn't do it on a Pixel because I needed a 32-second exposure. And when I set up a Pixel and I do a long exposure, it doesn't know why I'm doing the long exposure. So I go into motion mode and I want it to blur, you know, cars driving. Well, I live out in the burbs now. So a freeway at night, I can't go with just like a 4-second exposure. There's not enough traffic to streak a taillight with a 4 to 6 second exposure in the motion mode. So I pop up a Vivo and I go ISO 50, exposure, shutter speed, 32 seconds, clip on a little ND filter and just let the phone rock. And it's perfect. I mean, like the first 2 shots I had were just a little too dark, so I opened up the ND filter one stop, and then I landed my 4th shot, and it was perfect. And there's no way for me to recreate that on a Pixel. So really, I kind of feel the thing I would hope Google will do is maybe meet us halfway. You can save RAW photos from a Pixel, but they're compressed RAW. They're not full RAW. So if you pull the RAW photos from an Xperia Pro I, they're all exactly 23.8 megabytes. It doesn't matter. Nothing is happening to the processing of those photos. Every single image, 23.8 megabytes. I feel like Sony is making a very specific claim about who should be using their products. If you shoot RAW on a Pixel 6, you end up with a DNG file between 7 and 14 megabytes, depending on the data that's in that image. So Google is actively storing and manipulating and compressing raw information from that phone. And if there's any phone that should be looking at Apple's strategy for Pro RAW, it's the Pixel 6. So if I pick up a Vivo, there's an option for Super RAW. And it takes a stacked image, a stacked series of RAW files and compresses it and creates a new DNG file with greater dynamic range. Philosophically, I have a hard time calling that RAW, but it's a DNG container for more image data, and it improves so many situations when you're looking to edit your photos in post. So I get it. Philosophically, I get twitchy, but practically, it's a nice benefit. And I feel that's what Google should be doing. If you're going to do the stacked HDR processing for your JPEGs, give us the same option to do a Super RAW or a Pro RAW or a Google RAW that retains more information, not squishing less information. And I feel like it's a tactical decision. Like, I feel Google is doing that. So you look at the raw file and you're like, oh, that's not very impressive. But this JPEG, man, this JPEG came out so beautiful and crispy and vibrant and colorful. You know what? I don't need to shoot raw on my Pixel. Whereas I pull up a super raw from a Vivo, and there is so much information in that raw file. I pull up a raw photo from an Xperia, especially the Pro I, the raw files look so much better than most of Sony's finished JPEGs. It's just incredible. And from there, you're gonna edit. So the photo gets better regardless. So two things need to happen. I wish Google would give us some kind of composite RAW, or just a full, this is the full data of the sensor from the moment that you shot. And then two, they need to make their settings sticky. One of the biggest roadblocks for me shooting on a Pixel is I go into shooting at an environment and the lighting conditions aren't going to change tremendously. But as we've seen, especially on larger sensor phones, they can lean into white balance issues for colored lighting. You know, people were making fun of my OnePlus 9 Pro, like, oh, I've got a jaundice filter on, but I'm under an ugly yellow street lamp. That's kind of what, the phone was kind of correct for capturing the lighting information of that scene. The Pixel 6 kind of does something similar. It's not going to find the true scientific white as well as like a Pixel 5a can. So if I make an adjustment on a Pixel 6 and I tell it, hey, I want to slide the white balance a little cooler so it brings up more of like the highlights and color of my skin more accurately, I can take that photo, and then if I have to refocus, I lose all of those adjustments. If I make some adjustments to the shadow slider and the highlight slider and I really nail the exposure that I want to get, I lose it the second I refocus. I cannot make those settings stick. And if Google really wants to say, we're not gonna do pro modes, but we're gonna give you the end results that you would want from those pro modes, they can't achieve that so long as their settings are completely momentary. Like they only exist in the moment that you're taking that photo, and they vanish if you need to recompose at all, or if you change your angle, or if you refocus on another thing. You know, like if I'm out at a park and I'm shooting photos of my family, the conditions are gonna stay pretty similar over the period of time that we're there. So I should be able to lock white balance and say, yeah, I'm generally gonna push this a little cooler so that everything doesn't look Mexico filter orange as we get into sunset light. That shouldn't be an issue. But on a Pixel, I've got to reset every single time I recheck critical focus on a Vivo, on a Sony, on a Samsung, on an LG. I can go into the pro modes, keep everything auto. All the exposure stuff stays auto, but I can go into white balance and just dial it back just a little bit. Or I can lock the shutter speed. So if I want to focus on action, I can say, hey, fast action, just give me a crazy fast shutter speed and I'm okay if it's a little grainy or a little noisy. And it's those kinds of things like you still can't properly anticipate on a Pixel. And if you're going to give me an action mode, that's not really better, is it? It becomes more confusing having food mode, motion mode, action mode, sports mode, astrophotography mode, night mode, which is different than astrophotography mode. You know, like they've done such a good job of streamlining HDR. I worry if we're going to get back to like the Galaxy S3 days of camera apps, where you open up the camera app and then you push on modes and you just see lists of individual single-use features. Streaking taillight mode, you know, fourth Sunday of the month in church attire mode, food mode, but not Asian food mode. You need noodle slurping mode, not pizza mode. You know, like I don't want that to happen. I don't think Google's going to do that. I think they're going to try and make the claim that their AI is so good that it can detect the conditions of the shot to deliver those individual modes. But increasingly, that's only okay for a subset of average consumers that are totally hands-off. And as soon as you want to try and nail something down just a step beyond that, I think it falls apart. So Again, I absolutely cringe a little at calling this a Pixel 6 Pro, but it is absolutely effortless to nail moment shots in a way that is very pleasing from a social media and auto HDR perspective. The corollary to that would be the Sony is even faster at getting to critical focus and nailing a raw file that will destroy most phones' finished JPEGs. And the Vivo is absolutely the slowest at getting into a camera app, getting into a mode, and pushing a shutter button to get the photo that you want. So if you're concerned with a moment or tracking action, Xperia just cannot be beat. It is so fast. It is so efficient. The autofocus is so scary. It's so good. If you want the prettiest composite of colors in that moment, you got to go Pixel. Like if you get to the end of that process and you're like, I absolutely can't slap a filter on this photo or do a little bit of editing in the Instagram app just to bring up shadow detail, cut the highlights and add a little saturation. Like if that's just so much work, you can't accomplish it, then you've got to go Pixel. And that's where these little nuances to me matter. We've got very similar camera sensor sizes, very similar aspects of photography performance and bokeh and depth of field. And so like the nuance of critical eye level focus from a Sony versus beautiful HDR post-processing on a Pixel, that's what makes the decision. But it does make me sad because again, we're going to judge Sony by a completely different standard than what they're claiming their product is for. And we're going to also complain about Google not having all their algorithms perfectly polished for a completely different camera sensor. Whereas increasingly, like it's an impressive consumer point and shoot solution. It's really good. And comes with a distinct hardware advantage over an iPhone 13 Pro that's going to cost more. So that to me is what gets to be a bit more exciting. Let me just tackle some of these comments and then we got to bounce. From Dr. Claw. Gadget. Pixel 6 is pretty much a major go for me. Only one usability flaw, and that's the fingerprint sensor. It's a lot to dive into and a lot to enjoy now that I've crossed some of my tinkering hurdles. And like again, I can't say the Pixel 6. I can't say anything about the Pixel 6. I don't have that. But the Pixel 6 Pro, the fingerprint sensor is just mid-pack. I mean, I think that's what's kind of funny is it's far from the worst. It's just not the best. And if you've ever come from a Pixel 5 or a Pixel 5a, dedicated fingerprint sensors are always going to crush in display. Simon says Hypno, but Juan, the pixels are huge. Reviewers say so, even though the S21 Plus is bigger than the Pixel 6. Shh. We always got to move the goalposts. Those goalposts got to be on like tank tread. They can maneuver anywhere you need them to go. Can't have consistent goalposts because then you might inadvertently criticize a popular product. Streamy voice, exactly. If the phone doesn't even have a pro mode, how the hell is it a pro? It's not. Oh, it's so not. I mean, it's such a beautiful phone. It does so many things well. You know, where it's a pro is in giving you more professional assistant features. Okay? So if you've ever had, you know, like if you've ever worked with a secretary, this feels like you've got a secretary with you that can manage your phone calls, that can kind of help streamline the process of communicating with other people. It can be a translator when you're in situations where you need to interact with people who don't speak the same language. That's where it could be pro. It's a pro secretary. It's not a pro photography solution. It's not a pro video solution. You've got to do more to it to get more out of it than what comes out of the box. So again, if we only judge a smartphone by a Geekbench score and a camera, whoa, man, is this not pro. But if your professional life revolves around getting stuck on hold, then this has incredible features to help you manage your day. That to me is a little more deserving of highlighting pro capabilities, but it's way less sexy. It is way less interesting, but it's so much more practical. Dr. Claw, there might be a reason for that. This is a camera discussion you don't get elsewhere. I find a lot of people's eyes will roll into the back of their head whenever I start talking about light and physics. I haven't even gotten to like the physics part of all this. Oh, let's talk about lens design on smartphones. A DTNL. I ordered pizza mode, not lasagna mode. The reds are like totally off. It's not worth it. I found on the Discord, we went through kind of like this like moment of remembrance for the LG G7. And I found the photo. And again, I don't share photos of Lex, but we're down in San Diego. We had just spent all day at the zoo. We're exhausted, and she's 3 years old. And she was such a little trooper, like toddling just with us the whole day, took a nap in her stroller, and we finally get into this. It took us like 40 minutes to get into this little Italian joint outside the San Diego Zoo. And there's just this cherub, squishy-faced 3-year-old daughter of mine, these wisps of hair that have been coming out of her little ponytail hair ties. She's got this little pink Batman hoodie on. She's got a fork in one hand, and she refuses to use a napkin. Like every time she picks up a piece of ravioli with her hands instead of her fork, she then wipes on her Batgirl hoodie. And there's just this look of incredible contentment. And like I got that manual modes because I'm in a dark, I mean like it's candlelit Italian restaurant in San Diego. No way. Like the movement of a toddler would ever have been frozen if I hadn't had a manual mode. Nailed the focus on her face. She's just got fork, mouthful of ravioli, but closed lip grin, and like all was right in the world. And it's noisy and it's grainy and it's blocky, and the camera is just being stretched to its limits. But like you can do that though. If I'd ever tried to take that photo, especially in that era of smartphones, if I'd ever tried to take that with like HDR mode in auto, it just would have been a mess of motion blur. It never would have come out. And those are the types of things that I want to communicate more. Is like, oh, if you just have a pro mode, you just carry your regular camera. And like if I had stopped that moment to try and lug out a camera to take a photo of my daughter eating ravioli, never would have happened. Never would have happened. And where am I keeping that camera on the table at a tiny little Italian restaurant where we're like wedged in on a single seater, but there's 3 of us? Like, again, I just hate that sort of foregone conclusion elitism. I mean, it's just not good enough, bro. Why would you buy that phone? You just buy like a regular camera on another phone and it'd be like the same price, bro. And you're like, you're dumb. That is the dumbest thing you could say if you can't appreciate why these kinds of nuances and performance matter, or why we would really want to see those improvements. Because I guarantee you, when an iPhone comes with a bigger camera sensor, you're going to act like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Sorry, I kind of went off on a memory there. It's one of those photos I just cherish. I just adore. We've spent the whole day at the zoo. I've got cute photos of her running around. She's like climbing on sculptures. She's taking photos with, there's one of like a crocodile swimming right up behind her, and she's sitting on the glass like, oh, I'm about to get eaten. The photo that caps the whole day sums up just what a wonderful day it was, watching my daughter wipe marinara sauce on her Batgirl hoodie, ignoring her fork, and just beaming over a mouthful of ravioli. And it's perfect. She's perfect. And it's frozen in time. And it's mine. And I have it. And I can give it to her if she ever wants to see it. And she'll know exactly what that feeling was. And that to me is just, that's the magic of a smartphone camera. That's what makes a good phone camera worth its weight in gold. And without hyperbole. Like there's nothing else I could compare to capturing that moment. Streamy Boys, yes, Pixel 6 Executive Assistant. You want to call it the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 EA, and you want to fight Electronic Arts legal team, that to me would be more accurate. Gormlord, the notes. Oh man, Note 20, Note 20 Ultra, that is a pro phone. And we're talking pro productivity with some solid camera features. Again, a Duo 2 makes some pretty good arguments for being a pro device, but not for the cameras. So I think that catches us up on the chat, and my voice is now starting to get legit scratchy. Let me just take one more drink of water, and then we're going to shut this thing down. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Oh, wait, let me get this one because Aditya's got a longer comment here. Using our tech to preserve memories for our future, you taught me that. I was a spec hype beast prior to your anecdote about using the wide angle on the V20 to capture Lex's first steps, and that resonated with me on some spiritual level. I'm glad, and thank you for that, because that's, to me, one of the most important parts of all of these conversations, and why I seem to be struggling so much with other tech reviewers is a review of the tech doesn't matter to me if it's just a review of the tech based on the tech. And I want to know who's using it, and I want to know what they're using it for. And for me, because my bread and butter, my work is production and video and audio and making commercials and shooting documentary footage and occasionally working on a short film, that's where I normally gravitate towards. And I want to bring some of that eye to preserving memories of my family. And I come by it pretty honest. My grandfather used to shoot 8mm home movies. And I've got footage of my family from 60 years ago. And we can hold on to it. And that's history. And that means something. And I get all weepy and teary-eyed, like if I go through, archive.org and I find an old collection of like home movie reels that have been uploaded, and no one knows like where they came from or who they belong to anymore or what family. It's just slice of life footage of some neighborhood shot in black and white, from the 1940s or something. That kind of stuff kind of gets to me. It's not like, oh, I need to make a mark on the world or preserve my memory of, I want people to remember me after I die. And it's not that. It's like I feel like I'm one of the few people in my family that can help remember other people. And that's a lot of pressure. Like it's a lot of stress. I'm going to be shooting Thanksgiving this year anamorphic because I want to make it special. But it's also like I need this to be special because it's the first time we'll have seen these family members in 2 years. Over 2 years since I've seen my sister and her husband. Thankfully, my parents drove out for Lex's birthday, so I've seen them more recently. But this stuff is scary, and we don't realize how fragile it can be. 2 years, over 2 years since I've seen my sister. I need it to be special when I get to see her again. And I want to capture a feeling of that. And I want to do that with the best tools that I have access to. And increasingly, the right tools for those jobs are not my more expensive mirrorless cameras. Increasingly, the right tools for those kinds of jobs are my phones. And so now I'm putting even more pressure on my phones to perform. So, yeah, I really got to wrap this up, and I'm going to get way too easily distracted and sentimental if I keep going through the chat. But because of you fine folks in the chat, that's why I adore having these conversations. It matters more what we do. The phone is a tool enabling you to do something. The phone is not interesting in and of itself. The phone is not entertaining just because it's in your pocket. And the more we can kind of spread that good word, I feel the more we'll be able to bring more folks back into our conversations and kind of shake up this atrophy that we're seeing talking about tech. Never before have we relied on tech as hard as we do, and never before have people been less interested in talking about it. And I feel like, man, that shouldn't be. We've broken something, and I don't know how to fix it, but I'm going to try. So we'll have to see where we go from there. And Steel is Finest, I just want to say thank you. I know I've missed a few. There have been a few other folks that have subscribed, that you're in here on this Twitch stream, you're supporting this channel, you're supporting these kinds of conversations. It means a lot. And it means a lot because I know these are the types of people that tend to join these kinds of conversations with their own family and friends. And we can get a little bit more excited about that and that kind of sharing, rather than always just trying to turn everything into a lowest common denominator specs read with pretty B-roll. So folks, I'm pretty sure we're still going to have a podcast next Monday. There is going to be a little travel. I don't know exactly. I mean, the cool thing is we're road tripping. The scary thing is I'm not entirely sure exactly what our travel plans are going to be. But I think there will be a podcast next Monday. Tomorrow, I'm going to be putting out a review on some earbuds, but my friends at One More are going to be hooking up some color buds too. So these are the ultra tiny little color buds that have ANC, and we're going to give a pair of these away as a fun little stocking stuffer gift coming to SomeGadgetGuy.com. Unfortunately, it's only going to be USA and Canada, but there is going to be a giveaway on some of my favorite smaller earbuds of the year. And that contest is going to take us through Thanksgiving. So we're gonna have a link on SomeGadgetGuy.com to do a fun giveaway. And then I might be talking to another company about giving away a phone. But again, it would probably only be North America, but we'll have to see what we can do to maybe encourage some international shipping. So some sharing, some conversation, trying to bump up some of these, that would help. Just bring a little bit more visibility to finally starting to give away some more stuff through the podcast and then on the channel too. Streaming Boys is listening on his Color Buds 2 right now. They're killer little earbuds. I really dig these things. So be on the lookout. We got a lot of fun stuff coming to the channel, to the YouTube channel, to SomeGadgetGuy.com, to the subreddit. We've got to get ready for some holiday stuff. I completely dropped the ball talking about some criteria for end of the year. So let's save that for next week. We can talk about ways to do recap videos. Everybody that's still here, think about some things that you would want to see in an end of the year best of kind of format. And I'm sure we can put together some fun stuff that isn't just Apple had the best phone of the year because Apple. And we can actually get into some nitty gritty on making that a lot more fun. All right, folks, I want you to have an amazing week. I want you to do awesome with your technology. I want you to be awesome with your technology. I'll catch you all back here next week for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. Be safe. Take care of yourself so you can take care of others. I'll catch you back. I love you all.